Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Sasquatch Watch Radio with your hosts, Billy Willard and the Blog Squatter. Strap in, hold on tight, get ready, because it is about to go down.
Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, October 27th, 2008. I want to welcome everybody to another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. And it's a cold one here in Virginia today. I actually think I saw a little bit of sleet falling. I couldn't believe it. But I guess it's that time of year and it's starting to get cold. What about in your neck of the woods there, DB?
Well, my neck of the woods is not that far from your neck of the woods, so I had pretty much the same weather you did. But you know, when it starts to get cold, it's not bad squatching weather for this area. So I kind of welcome it when it gets cold, at least for that part of it. Yeah, I agree. Activity does seem to pick up, so to speak, around here in Virginia anyway. When it's cool, fall time of the year is usually a really good time of the year. Mm-hmm. So. Everyone, we have a great guest tonight. Before we get to our great guest, we're going to have DB, as usual, go over a little bit of news that he may have for us. What do you got for us today, DB? Well, I got a couple of short items here. The first one, people might remember that I was talking about a group of Japanese researchers who were going up into the mountains in Nepal to look for evidence of the Yeti. And they have returned. They didn't get the evidence that they were looking for. They hoped they would get, a good photograph or video, but they didn't get anything like that. But they said that they got a footprint. Now, I've seen the alleged footprint in a picture on the internet, and I just wasn't entirely impressed by it. It's really thin. I don't think it really looks like a bipedal walking person's footprint. But who am I to say? That's the first item. That they found a footprint of something. That's what they're saying. All right. What do you think of that? Well, hey, at least they found something. That's right. That's the positive part to look at. It might be weak, but they found something. That's right. Well, number two is maybe it'd be best if I just don't say what this item was, but a famous item that people who are listening would know as soon as I said anything about it. Let's say it's kind of like a costume. That item was sold not very long ago for $250,000 and some change on eBay. Now, can you believe that? Unfortunately, anymore, I have to say that I do. I tell you, it's unbelievable some of the things that people will buy on eBay. And, at first I thought, that's just a publicity stunt. They're trying to drive the future price up by pretending that they sold it for that. But it looks like, I haven't been able to dig into it real deep, but it kind of looks like the people who bought it were legit. It's a real company. So I don't know what they thought they were going to get for their $250,000. They're getting a freezer and a $499 costume, much the worse for wear. I'm not sure the freezer works anymore either. Probably not after all the water got in it. Taking some abuse. But, now if it's that easy to create value through something like that, my feeling is we're likely to see another one pretty quickly. So that's my angle on this. That's why I bring it up, and I think, let's keep this fresh in our minds, because sometime soon somebody might say, hey, I've got something. Maybe they won't say, I've got a body of a Bigfoot, because that's been done. But they could say, oh, I've got a piece of a body of a Bigfoot, and something's going to happen. Something's going to happen to try to ride this particular, carnival show as far as they can. That's what I think.
I'm sure we can bet that that's going to be the case. There will be more in store, I'm sure.
Well, that's all I've got for today. So now we can get on with our guest.
All right. Well, everyone, we want to welcome Mr. Rick Noll from Washington State. Rick, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, thanks.
I'm glad that you were able to come on the show. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
As far as I'm concerned, you're an outstanding individual, and I like a lot of the work that you've done. I met you, and I know you probably don't remember, but I did meet you up at the Pennsylvania conference, the East Coast conference, when you were up there. I believe that was 2005, I believe.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah, I always enjoy that conference. I got to go to it last year. Well, actually not last year. Actually, it was just in October. Goodness, time flies. And I enjoyed it then too. But it was nice meeting you up there. So, Rick, I guess we'll get right into it. We always like to ask our guests, what, and I'm sure a lot of people have already heard you answer this, but we're going to ask you anyway. What really got you into this?
Well, my story isn't as exciting as other people's, but I think it's just a transference of some fear I had when I was younger, and my cousin took me to the Bluff Creek region. He was working on some bridges, and my brother was with me, and my cousin's son was there too, and they wanted to go fishing. We were camped down on the Klamath River, and they decided they were going to walk across it to get to the other side because it looked like better fishing. And so they proceeded to walk across. Well, that didn't work out. All the rocks and everything was pretty loose on the bottom of the river, and they got swept out. My cousin got out of the water, but my brother went under. And I just freaked out and grabbed an axe and ran across the water. I don't even know if I got wet. I ran so fast. But when I got over there, it took me 3 times with the axe handle to reach out and try and grab him. And when I pulled him out, he was completely stripped naked. Everything was gone. All the fishing gear, all his clothes, his shoes, everything. And he was crying. And I was, I was the older brother, and I just felt really bad that I almost got him killed by agreeing that he could walk across that river. So I had nightmares after that, and on the, I don't know, second, third night that we were camped there, my cousin was talking to some of his workers, and they came down and started telling me stories to try and get my mind off of it. Well, they told me Bigfoot stories, and it just sort of stuck. All
right. That's definitely an interesting story. I've never heard one like that. That's pretty interesting. So I can see where you would feel bad after telling him to cross that river.
Yeah, my brother.
It's probably it's probably a raging river too, right?
At the time, it wasn't raging. It was really, it's just like a babbling. It was large.
Right.
It must have been 50, 75 yards across, but it didn't look deep or swift. There was no white water or anything like that, but it was, that's a lot of water to move around you for you to stand up.
Oh, yeah. DB, any questions in the chat yet?
Well, Bill Green has asked a question that we've heard from him before. He'd likes to know if there are any recent sightings or footprint finds in your area.
In my area, I'm sure there are. There's a lot of people that are going out even more than I do, and really trying to canvass the area. Plus, we're getting into hunting season and that, and I always get some reports from some hunters. But as far as I know, in the Pacific Northwest, most of the activity apparently has been focused up in British Columbia.
Yeah, I've heard. There's been some news floating around about a lot of activity up that way. Now, you had mentioned that you get some sightings from hunters. Do any of those happen to be hunters in tree stands?
No, they don't usually use tree stands up here. Okay. I don't know why. Maybe it's too cold, I guess, because when you get up in the air a bit in the wintertime, it does get quite cold with the wind. Yeah. So I think they're still camouflage and everything like that, bow hunters and muzzle loaders and stuff, those type of hunters. But they just sort of lean against a tree and just sit there and wait. So they're not using tree stands as much as they do down south.
Yeah, I'm sure it gets quite cold there, being up there in the north like that. I didn't even think about that. It would go through you like a razor blade, I'm sure. DB, any more questions in the chat before I go on?
No, we don't have any questions in the chat just yet.
Okay. Rick, this is something that I've always wanted to ask you. You've been doing this now for some time, and we've heard you and seen you on a lot of the DVDs and some of the programs. If you had any words of encouragement or words or suggestions for researchers, whether they be old or young in the research, what kind of suggestions would you have for them?
Get out now. That's what Renee Dehinden used to tell me. Get out now while you're ahead. I think if people continue thinking outside the box, the conventional wisdom has not done much in the past, and if they think out of the box and try new methods, someone's going to hit upon the right combination. And I'm just waiting for someone to do that. There's a lot of gadgets out there that people have been trying out. Now, the trouble with these new technologies is, my way of thinking is that, we have a lot of ingenuity, and technology is the edge to that ingenuity. And if we didn't have the ingenuity and we just had the technology, we'd be just running amok with all these pieces of junk laying around. But it's how we use that technology. It's what we put the technology to use doing. And all you got to do is pick up a catalog, and any catalog, and you'll probably come up with 4 or 5 different things in a catalog, whether it be a Sears catalog, Cabela's, REI, Edmund Scientific, a fishing and hunting catalog, anything like that. You'll probably find 3 or 4 items in there that would aid in your search. Maybe something that you never even tried before, like how about these handheld weather devices that you hold up and it takes the wind speed and the temperature, it takes the barometric pressure, and it gives you a weather report. They run about less than $100. A lot of different stores sell them, and some of them are programmable, and you can program in for your area of course, your latitude and longitude, which gives you the moon and sunrise and your date and the time, and it will tell you, if you program it in right, when deer are most active. Now, if you can reduce the Bigfoot sightings down to the same thing, you could use this little handheld weather thing to tell you when is the most likely time that you can possibly see a Sasquatch. So you take that out with you, and maybe you are out there for a week, and 4 or 5 times out of that week is according to the reports, the most active time, and you can actually utilize that piece of technology to be like an alarm clock, to wake up and be a little bit more attentive to the environment.
All right.
So I think thinking outside the box, looking around you, what kind of tools to use, what's what's not useful, but what's not practical, and leaving those behind and just taking what you need.
Right, that's a very interesting tool. I didn't even know that existed. It's a good idea. DB, I think I've seen questions. I don't want to leave you out there.
Let's see. We do have a question from Don. He asks, regarding the Skookum cast, where are the footprints that are related to the Skookum cast?
Where are they?
Yes, the sense I'm taking from that is he thinks that there should be some footprints from when the creature walked up to the place where it would have left its body print, and he's wondering where they are. If you can account for why they aren't there, I guess would be another way to put it.
The Skookum cast, well, the impression itself was in an area that was more like a circle, a small depression, where runoff from the road next to it congregated and seeped in, and consequently it was very silty right there. When it freezes, it raises it up, sort of like hoarfrost. It will raise the soil. Around it was hard-packed gravel and dirt where everybody would drive and they'd park, they'd camp there or whatever they'd do in that particular area. So it was very, very hard. And my dually, which I don't know how much it weighs, but obviously a lot more than a Sasquatch or even an elk with sharp hooves, doesn't leave a mark around that. But if you drive through it, it sinks in an inch or two. So my best answer is that it didn't even step in it. So there was no footprints.
Let me we got a caller on the line. Let me get him on here. I think I know who this is. Is this Henry May?
It's Henry May, Billy. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, Henry. You got a question for Mr. Noll?
Yeah. First of all, hello, Rick. Rick may not remember. Sean Forker and I interviewed you a little over a year ago.
Yes, I remember.
Okay, great. I want to ask about the Skookum Cast expedition. I want to ask. I know y'all probably found footprints in other areas on that expedition. Did you happen to see if there were any what do you call it, lines of footprints? And in the lines of footprints, were they walking like as if with a tightrope, on a tightrope, or were they splayed out like humans do?
On the Skookum expedition, there was, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 track sites located. One was 2 prints in a downed log, a rotten log that was laying like greater than 45 degrees on a hillside. And then another one was just an individual print off the side of one of the Forest Service roads. And down below where Alan Terry and Dr. Bamanek were, had a listening post, and something came up and gave a response to the call blasting that we were doing. There was some disturbance along the road. I wouldn't really call them tracks, but obviously something was walking along there and lifting up rocks and walking on the moss. There was no sharp imprints. And the only one that was footprints in a line was going up a hillside to that very site where Alan Terry and Dr. Bamanek were. And that was found right at the beginning of the expedition, before we even started call blasting, before the majority of the people arrived. And it was walking sort of like a human would, which means that it was not going straight up this embankment. The embankment's, 75 feet in height. It was going side to side, like zigzagging, and the distance between them was too big. It was barefoot, and the size of the tracks were too big to, we think, be human. So it really wasn't. We can't really say that we found anything that would be walking in a straight line.
Okay.
Cool.
I also wanted to ask, have you ever found any other kind of prints? I mean, besides the Skookum cast, also besides footprints, have you found where perhaps someone put a knee down, or perhaps had an elbow down, or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, of course, almost at the same time that the Skookum cast was, or the Skookum expedition was taking place, the Washington State Sasquatch Association down in Grays Harbor got a call, and they went out. The founder, Andrew, went out and investigated where someone claimed to have seen something, and he went down to this small creek, and it was pretty overgrown, and that's where he found what looks like a handprint, a knee print, a footprint, where it apparently knelt down to sip some water with its hand out of a creek, and he attempted to cast it, but he didn't have enough material, and so it broke apart. And the only place to see that, I don't think they took any still images. They took a video, and it's on their DVD. So I didn't have anything to do with that, but I just found it interesting that he found that. But Owen Caddy and I had been doing some investigation up in our study area, and we decided it was about time that we tried out the pheromone chips. And along the river, there's a lot of sweepers, which are down logs and stuff. That's what the whitewater people call them. They're hazards. You hit one of those while you're going down the river in a raft, and you're probably not going to come back out. They stick in the water, they stick out of the water. They're all over the place. It's like from the air, it looks like matchsticks. Anyway, on this one that was sticking up like a flagpole, leaning over a bit, Owen shimmied on up there and hung a pheromone chip. We could see it for quite a distance, over a football field away. And we went back a few weeks later, and we noticed that there was tracks, but we couldn't really make out what they were leading up to that site. We knew they weren't ours because we made sure that we didn't leave tracks going out to there. Whoever or whatever made the tracks obviously didn't care whether they left tracks. When we got closer, plus the type of soil there, well, on rivers, depending on where you are on a river, you can get really silty soil or really sandy soil. You can get large grains or small grains. And in this particular site, it was sort of coarse grain, and so any type of footprint doesn't last very long, or it doesn't look very good. You want to look for the wet areas, the low areas where the silt sort of migrates down with any type of water table increase. So anyway, we got up there to where the pheromone chip was. It was still up there, but we looked at the log that went up to it, which is a pretty big log, about 3 feet in diameter, and it was a Doug fir. It had big thick bark on it. Something had walked on it and broken free a whole bunch of the bark, and it broke off, and whatever did that actually fell off the log and landed in the soil. And we sat there and we videotaped it. It's a pretty interesting video. I'll probably put it in a DVD set soon. But it actually shows us examining it and actually finding it, because we discovered it while we were videoing. and you'll see the tracks that we're following going up to this, and where the bark fell off to the ground was a good 7 feet. So it wasn't like someone was going to jump off. It really looks like someone or something was on that log, and the bark gave way, and they slipped off and fell. And when they fell, you see where it looks like there's 2 hand prints off to the side, and a buttocks, and then 2 heels dug into the soil. So that's the only other thing that I found that was sort of similar.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
It's pertaining to your work with Owen Caddy on the Patterson Gimlin movie. Now, one discovery that he made on it, and it was highlighted on Monster Quest last year, was where the mouth opens lower on Patty than it's actually thought, and this is consistent with also with chimpanzees who have the lower opening, on their face of the mouth than we would expect. What is your opinion of that, and what work did you actually do for the Patterson Gimlin movie for that Monster Quest?
I had a lot to do with that Monster Quest episode. I originally was supposed to be the entire crew, but that was just too much work, and so I had various other photographers or cameramen, and of course the executive producer, and I wrote the original storyline that I wanted to pursue, and it got changed, of course, through not getting interviews or getting interviews that didn't work out, stuff like that. So I had quite a bit to do with that episode. What I did with the Patterson film was John Green wanted to make a digital copy and a film-based copy of his copy, and he wanted it larger so that he could compare pictures side by side, because at the time what was in the news and everybody's thoughts was this book by Greg Long, who was talking about Bob Hieronymus wearing a suit. Mm-hmm. And everybody was questioning whether or not his limbs were big enough or small enough to fit in a suit of that shape. So they were looking at the intermembral index, one of the 4 indexes that scientists evaluate different primates, and he wanted these pictures where maybe he could measure those, not actual dimensions in inches, but in percentages or ratios. Like the forearm is 10% larger than the lower leg, something like that. And so that was the original purpose. But what I discovered was when you make a print off of a positive, you are only using half of the density of the medium that you're shooting light through to project onto a piece of paper and make it into a photograph. Why? Well, because when your eye looks at a photograph, it's looking through the dye emulsion down to the paper and then reflecting back up, doubling the amount that you're seeing through that density. So they actually cut down half of the information from the positives or the film when they make a print, and that's what happened with the Cibachromes. So when we went digital, we're actually capturing the entire density, and in that way we could break it apart, just as if we were taking the original picture. We could break it apart into the red, green, and blue components and find out which one was creating the most noise and try and get rid of it, which happened to be the blue layer. And in so doing, what we discovered, when you blink between images really close together, you will start seeing where there's distortion and where there's an actual something on that body or that subject that's in that film. It's not, it's not a mistake. It's really there on the body. And when we started doing that, that's when Owen started doing his drawings and seeing features. At first, I couldn't see anything that he was talking about, and then sitting through it, he made little gifts for me. Sure enough, I saw the mouth opening, and it was lower, and I could actually see the nose, and it was more puggish looking than human. It wasn't, like the human where the nostrils are pointing down. The nostrils are almost pointing away from the face, out. So that was interesting. And when he showed me examples of the chimpanzees that had the same effect, in a photograph, and that the mouth was lower but it looked higher in the photograph, I came to believe that he was correct.
Yeah.
Very
well, thank you very much, Rick, for answering my questions. Very fascinating stuff tonight, and I'll continue listening to the rest of the show, Billy and DB. Great show as always.
All right, thanks a lot for calling in, Henry. And folks, if y'all could stand by, we're going to take a real quick commercial break, and then we'll be right back. So everybody just hang tight. JC, go take a pee break.
Sasquatch Watch Radio. Stay tuned.
Years ago, most of us were terrified to bank online, fearing people could hack our accounts and view our personal financial information. Yet now, mostly all of us do it and couldn't live without it. It takes time for people to adopt the new technology. That's why I want to tell you about the award-winning product, Go to My PC, because it's as secure, if not more so, than online banking. Go to My PC, brought to you by Citrix, is the easy, secure, and reliable way to remotely access your PC from any internet-connected computer. Everything is protected with a fancy state-of-the-art security features like end-to-end 128-bit encryption, which no matter what, your critical data is protected. See for yourself with this 30-day risk-free trial. Visit gotomypc.com/podcast. That's gotomypc.com/podcast. Fast, easy, secure, go to my PC.
All right, folks, we're back. And before I get to DB's questions, I keep forgetting to go ahead and blurt out the call-in number for folks who may not be in the chat, who may just be listening live. The call-in number, if you want to ask Mr. Noll a question, is 347-237-5070. Again, it's 347-237-5070. And DB's got a bunch of questions on back order, as he says, so I'm going to let him get to those questions.
Well, I'm going to combine two of them here. This is combining Cookie44 and Wildman Joe together. Cookie44 wanted to know, how do you tell a Sasquatch from a very hairy man or an ape? And Wildman Joe wants to know, is Bigfoot an ape, and what pheromone chip were you using when you were using a pheromone chip? Those are all related there together.
Okay. In my opinion, Bigfoot or Sasquatch is probably not an ape, but it's not a human. It's more in line with the human line, but I wouldn't call it an ape. My understanding of apes is that there's none here in North America. They are in Africa, and that there's monkeys over here. I would say, I don't know, I'm not sure if you would consider Gigantopithecus an ape or something else. I'm not exactly sure on the terminology. And as far as telling it between a very hairy human, well, that I don't know. I do know that I have seen some transients in certain areas that were so dirty that they were hairy.
Right.
And if they're out at night, they could give the appearance of something like a Sasquatch if you're startled and only see it for a few seconds.
Right. If you get a better look at it, I would think that the breadth of the shoulders would be one thing that you might use to judge between, you know, hairy guys seen really at a distance or a Bigfoot. You know, if they get the really broad shoulders, the short neck, things like that might help Cookie 44 tell them apart.
I think that if I saw one, it would have to be under circumstances where I would not be wondering what I saw.
Right. Right. Yeah, you wouldn't go around telling people you saw one if you weren't sure. And Joe wanted to know, Wildman Joe wanted to know what kind of pheromones you were using when you did the pheromone chip thing. Like, was that from an ape or? Well,
Bamanek, he makes pheromones for a variety of things. He's the one that got beat up by a deer. And he also makes them for fish. A fishing lure. You put this pheromone on your fish or on your fishing line, and it's supposed to attract fish. Well, he's a clinical psychologist, but he's also a chemist, and he has these little cow chips. They're called. It's like a rubbery plastic. It's bright orange in the shape of a stop sign, about an inch in diameter, and with a little hole to hang them on. And he puts them under pressure, and he got bacteria from a gorilla somehow. I don't know how, but he did, and from a human, and mixed them together, and and he impregnates it with it, and it lasts for about 6 months. It's more pungent. There's actually a smell to me. I mean, each person reacts differently to it, but to me, in the heat, you can smell it more than in the cold. And it smells like really rotten socks, and it gives me a headache really bad.
Yeah. Is it effective?
I don't know. We've used them, and there's no direct link to anything that may be Sasquatch related, and those pheromone chips. Although I have that video showing us putting up a pheromone chip and the thing falling off the log, or on the Skookum trip, all the pheromone chips that we set out disappeared. So I'm not sure. That could have been birds. Who knows? Right.
Right. Well, that is a good point. That something fell off of that log, and I wanted to know if you took casts from the hands and the heels that were left in the ground below.
No, it was the wrong type of soil. So all we got is a video, and we got photographs with scale.
I see. And that reminds me. I wanted to tell you. I read the casting handbook sort of thing that you had up on Cryptomundo a couple of years ago, I guess it is now. And a year and a half ago here in Virginia, somebody came across some tracks in the snow, and I referred back to that casting handbook thing that you had up to tell him how to cast the prints, and he got a good cast.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah, so it worked. It worked. If people don't know about that, I point them to it, because I think that's probably the best resource I've ever seen for casting.
Great. Let me ask JC's question real quick DB, if you don't mind, I'll jump in there.
Yeah, because he wouldn't tell me the question, so, I mean, I don't know what that's all about.
JC wants to know, Rick, if you've ever had a sighting yourself.
I can't say for sure. I've seen some pretty strange things, and I've gotten some strange images on camera traps. Like I said before, if I'm going to say that I saw a Sasquatch, it's going to be where I am absolutely positive that that's what it was, and I wouldn't tell people unless I had evidence of it.
Right. Right. All right, DB, I know you still got a list.
I got a couple more questions. USBRA Radio wants to know if you're still in the aircraft business.
Yes, I am. I work at a place up in Marysville that is a subcontractor to Boeing and manufacturing interiors, and now we're doing structural components. And what I do is I measure and lay out stuff with laser trackers and theodolites. I set up their 5-axis machines, and in the process of doing that, sometimes I have to generate surfaces with plaster, and that's how I got into plaster, was in the tooling aircraft industry.
Cool. That was going to be one of my other questions. How do you think your job has, do you think your job has helped you in any of your research? And that's a good one right there.
Well, recently I just got done working on one of the Monster Quest episodes in Falk, and they asked for me to come up with a couple of new technologies that might help, and one of them was the use of a high-powered UV laser that was my friend at work. He built it. He got an old, the wars between Blu-ray and HD technologies, and the HD lost out. Well, now you can purchase those HD players for really cheap, and you can get the laser diode out of them, and they burn. They're like 150 milliwatts. He took out the laser diode in there and put on a powering circuit and stuck it in a little tiny pin light. So now we have this UV light source, and he on the exit beam he put a line generator, which is there's various ways to make it into a line, but it's a line generator, so it's not a little dot that you see. It's a complete line going across whatever you shine the laser on. And I purchased some material from the forensics industry called SPR spray, and that's a small particle reagent. And there's 3 types, but the one I got was very reactive to ultraviolet. And so what the theory was that in areas like around your camp at night, you can spray down the foliage surrounding your camp, and anything that walks through that or disturbs it will leave telltale signs, and you can shine this laser on it later on and see if it was disturbed. As a matter of fact, as you are going through the forest at night, if you shine this laser around and it happens to be a creature, an animal that went through that little SPR trap that you laid, it's going to glow. So you'll be able to see it. So this laser, it's pretty dangerous. You have to be very cautious when you use it. I wanted it high powered so it would go, quite a distance. But it's powerful enough it would pop balloons at 8 feet. Consequently, it'll burn your eyeballs out at that distance as well. Most people can't see ultraviolet, so you need to put on these like shooter's glasses. They're yellow, and it cuts out the blue light, and all you see reacting is fluorescence from the UV of the laser reacting with the SPR spray. So that was, I forget what the question was, but
I don't know, but that was some.
Yeah, that was interesting stuff. Yeah, I know what the question was. It was how your job was, impacting your research.
Right. So that was laser. I use laser trackers.
All right.
So I've always wanted to incorporate lasers out there.
Let me get this
a lot
call.
People...
Oh, never mind. I just
go right ahead.
Caller, if you, I lost him. So if he wants to call back in, it was, I believe it was a 209 area code. If you want to call back in, I was getting ready to bring you on, but hopefully they can call back.
Come back, caller.
Go ahead, DB.
We got a couple more questions. Blue Tracker wants to know during this. I think this is during the Skookum Cast expedition. Although he also was asking it right after you were talking about the episode where there was the log that the thing slipped off of. So you might have meant that. He wanted to know how far apart the footprints were. You said there were various footprint finds, and he wants to know if there was any audio of any sounds from that time.
Okay, that must be the Skookum expedition. Yes, there was audio returns, and Derek Randall had a video camera at the time, recording us playing the calls, and he got a return call, and it matches pretty good what we were broadcasting out, which was the Tahoe scream. Unfortunately, he has never released that audio. But I have heard it. Leroy Fish heard it. Of course, we were there. We heard it in real life, and everybody on the expedition heard it. But that's the only recording that I know of the return calls. As far as the distance between the tracks, I'd have to go and look at all my notes. But I do know that I couldn't make them even when I was going downhill. And Leroy was there with me when we were measuring it, and I believe the tracks were. I'd have to check. I don't want to be misquoted, but they were quite distant from one another and quite large tracks.
Right. Well, Blue Tracker had one last question too, and this was related to you saying that you didn't want to say you had seen anything. Well, he wanted to know if you had seen like when it gets dark, have you seen these have you seen shadows that you thought might be Bigfoot? He calls it shadow encounters with Bigfoot.
The only time I've seen shadows is when someone is playing with a flashlight, and it catches on things that you're not really aware of. But no, I have never had anything like that. I've had things thrown at me.
Right.
I've never seen any shadow things.
All right, I think our caller is back.
All right.
Let's see here. Caller from the 209 area code. You're on the air with Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Yeah, I was wondering if Rick ever done any research around Marin County, up around the coast there or anything?
Marin County?
No, Marin County, yeah, by San Rafael. Yeah, Marin, above San Francisco.
No, I haven't. I just drove through the area, and it looks pretty promising.
Yeah, back in '69, a friend and I were up. We used to have a little place we used to go and drink a few beers on the hill up there. And the name of it it's called Barber Park and Chinese Camp Park. And you kind of go out by the Civic Center. It's called North San Pedro Road. Then you take a road up to the hill. It's called Berry Hills Drive. So we used to go up there and drink a few beers, and you could see all around San Rafael, all around the Bay Area. And when we were up there, my friend, we were just kind of sitting on the hood of the car, and he goes, "You just see that?" And I said, "Yeah, I saw something go by there. It looked kind of black, And I said, "Well, let me turn the headlights on." And then, over by the barbed wire fence, I'd say about 50 feet from us, was three of them standing there. One was real tall. I'd say he was probably about 12 feet tall. And the other one looked about 7-8 foot. And then there was one that looked about 5 foot tall. And it was like a family of them. right there. I mean, it scared the dickens out of us, so we just hopped in my car and we split.
Wow.
So this was back in 1970, up in those hill area.
Did you report it to the Bay Area group?
No, we thought we were just kind of seeing things, you know.
Uh-huh.
But I used to squirrel hunt further back over into the foothills along the coast, and with my friend, he's passed on since. And but him and we saw him out there along the hills, and then I knew we weren't seeing anything. I never told anybody because I always thought, you know, they kind of think we were nuts and stuff. But we finally, you know, we confirmed it because we saw him. He looked through his binoculars, and they were upright type. We thought maybe there were you know, monkeys escaped from somebody over there.
Mm-hmm.
But
12-foot tall monkeys.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I thought it was gorillas. You know, maybe they got out of the zoo or something. But it sure scared the heck out of us. But the second time we saw them, that was about a month after that too. We were out squirrel hunting along the hills there, and we saw them again. It was the same family that we saw up there that night, up along the hills there. And there's a lot of, you know, isolated homes up in around those areas. So I don't know, you know, if there's and then there's a lot of wild blackberries and stuff like that in that area. So I don't know if they were maybe you know, eating off there or grubbing or whatever they were doing.
Well, I know that.
I heard a couple other reports, and I was just curious, you know, if you've ever talked to anybody, you know, from that area.
No, I haven't, but I know that Michael Rugg in the Santa Cruz Bigfoot Museum there would be very interested in your report. You should probably contact him.
Yeah, and then I've had one more encounter with them. I knew they were there. I saw two of them at another area. I know all the areas where I've seen them and stuff, and I still believe they're around there because there's still a lot of farm cattle ranch lands in that area, and I still believe that to this day they're still there in that area.
Yeah. I would definitely contact Michael, and if you can still find the spots, he'd probably.
Oh yeah, I know exactly where they're at. Yeah, I know where everything is. Yeah, I can take them to everything because, like I said, we used to squirrel hunt a lot, and we used to find the good places to go to drink, you know, and nobody would bother you. But I know they up in Marin County now. I know they have a lot of laws where you can only foot it in, you can't drive in. And stuff because of the four-wheel drive problems they were having up in the hills and everything back then. But I still know like I said, I still know where all the areas are and stuff. And I'd be willing to take them there, you know.
Well, yeah, look him up. That's Mike Rugg, right, Rick?
Yes.
Mike Rugg.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep, Mike Rugg. I think that's RUGG.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thanks for calling in.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for talking to me. Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, bye. Okay, we've got another caller on the line that's been holding on. Caller from the 352 area code, you're on the air.
Hey, Bill, it's Dan from Florida, known as Swamp Rat.
How you doing?
All right, how you doing?
Good.
I got a rhetorical question for Rick. I always want to ask somebody from the Northwest out there. A lot of people subscribe to the theory that you know, there's different species of Sasquatches compared to up north, compared to down south. I was just wondering if he ever thought about it and his personal take on it.
Yeah, I thought about it. I think for us to rely on the reports to be 100% accurate, I'm not talking about true, but accurate. When 99% of the reports of an actual sighting of the animal last only a few seconds, it's kind of hard to come to a determination that there would be a separate species or a lot of different species of these things running around. I kind of think that it's just, variation within a population.
Yeah, I always subscribe to just being slightly smaller. I'm in Florida, and, we get a lot of northerners hunt down here, and they complain that the deer are small.
Uh-huh.
And, the hotter the climate you tend to travel to, the smaller everything is. But
what kind of deer?
Just want just white-tailed deer.
Oh, same. We got white-tailed deer up here, too. Would
yeah,
they
but
be
here
the same species?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much the same species, but down here the white-tailed deer is really small. Compared to up north. Up north there's, pretty good size. Down here they're about half the size. And,
right.
But I was just wondering, I get a lot of people asking me that, and I've gotten reports of 8.5 foot tall males here, and I just can't really see that much. I can only see like a foot or two difference in height.
Right. Have you heard of Bergman's rule?
No. Probably. I just can't.
Yeah, that's
ahead.
where an animal of the same species, the further north it is located, the population, the larger it tends to be. And the reason for that is the surface area of the body. The smaller the surface area, the cooler it stays. The larger the surface area, the warmer. So
yeah, it's just like down in the Keys, the deer are as big as dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, a medium-sized dog. All right, well, I don't want to tie up y'all's show. And
thanks for calling, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Bye.
All right, bye. Well, DB, we're running out of time. Do you have any other quick things that you need to add from the chat room?
Yeah, Debut David asked a couple of questions. First, he wanted to know, do you keep in regular contact with Professor Mel Drum? And he also had a question about the range of altitude of Bigfoot. Is it limited like some people seem to think that Yeti is supposed to be?
Yeah, I'm in contact with Jeff all the time. I saw him last week down in Texas, and we talk regularly. He's, of course, quite busy with school. He still teaches. And as far as the altitude, right? It's altitude? Elevation?
Right.
Elevation.
Right.
Yeah, I know that, in the Hoopa Project, a new book that's out, the author, David, mentions that everything that he's been discovering is right around the 2,500 foot range, plus or minus 800 feet. And I'm not seeing anything like that. It's more like that these animals are like other animals, and that they use altitude to thermal regulate their internal temperature. When it's hot, they go up. When it's cool, they go down in elevation. Mm-hmm. You get near the rivers down low during the winter time, and during the summer you go up high and you get the lush berries, and so Owen Caddy, he further refines that by going we sort of tend to gravitate towards valley walls that are facing east and west, not north and south. North and south mountains, their sides are either perpetually in shadow or they're perpetually in the sun. And for thermal regulation to really work, they would be going from side to side in a valley on the east and the west side. If they're too hot, they'll go over to the shady side. And when they're too cold, they'll go over to the sunny side. And going up and down in those valleys, they would also thermal regulate. And usually in a valley, there's water down at the base, and up above is the berries and the small mammals and stuff. So I don't see that as being an elevation really being a key. But when you mentioned Yeti, from my understanding, the Yeti prints that have been discovered usually are in snow, and that doesn't mean that they live in the snow. It just means that they cross over, and from one valley to another, and they may be doing the same sort of thing. Now we have several different examples to go and explore, like mountain gorillas, which are doing what I'm just describing, and then we have the lowland gorillas, which do more like what is being described down in the south, which they spend most of the time in a swamp and usually up to their chest, rooting around and looking for worms and stuff in the bottom of these swamps. Whereas up here, we don't have that many swamps, and so they're more, I would say, like a mountain gorilla than the lowland gorilla. I hope that helps or answers.
Oh yeah, definitely does. Well, DB, and Rick, we're actually not live anymore, but we're still streaming or we're still archiving.
Right.
So, DB,
anything you say now could still be held against you.
That's right. Did you have anything else, DB, that you wanted to add in to?
Yeah, this is great since it's not on it. There's a lady who frequents this chat room that seems to be very interested in knowing, Rick, whether you wear boxers or briefs.
What?
I just read the questions. I don't make them up.
Oh, Jesus.
Or maybe you don't wear any underwear at all. Briefs. There you go.
No.
I think I would have gone with none. That doesn't have to be true. She can just imagine.
Oh, my goodness. You get them all, don't you?
Yeah, that's the first time I've gotten that one, though. Well, it was a great show.
It was a great show. Rick, I appreciate you coming on. I know you stay busy, and it's kind of out of your way probably to come on, but we really do appreciate it.
I'm glad to help.
All right. Well, everyone, Rick, thanks for coming on. DB, thanks for being a great co-host, as you always are. Next week we're going to have Mr. Stan Courtney from Illinois coming on. He's been working on a project, I believe it's called 48 and 08. He's running out of time, ain't he, DB?
Yeah, he's got to get it done.
He's only got a couple more months.
That's right.
He'll get it. But, yeah, everybody tune in next week, and we'll have Stan Courtney from Illinois on. I'm sure he'll talk to us a little bit about maybe some sounds he's got, as well as his project he's working on, 48 and 08. Rick, thanks again for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
We're going to sign off for now. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and hope to see all of you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.